Today, we're going to talk about the power of conformity concerning Ash's experiment, effects of group pressure on distortion of judgments. How do others' opinions affect us? How likely are people to conform in social groups? When in a group, we often go with the flow, while at the same time, we have some private reservations about what we're doing. Ash, 1951, 52, and 56, conducted a series of experiments to investigate how and to what extent social forces constrain people's opinions and attitudes. He felt that conformity can pollute the social process and that it is important for society to foster values of independence in its citizens. He wanted to find out just how powerful the need to conform is in influencing our behavior. Participants in groups of 7 to 9 individuals were assembled in a classroom for a psychological experiment in visual judgment. They were given the following instructions. You see 2 large white cards in front of you. On the left is a single line, a standard line. On the right are 3 lines of various lengths, comparison lines. They are numbered 1, 2, 3 in order. You have to choose the one that is of the same length as the standard line on the other card. The task was a simple one. The subjects announced their answers one at a time in the order in which they were seated. However, only the last individual in the sequence was a subject. The others, the Confederates, were in league with the experimenter and responded according to a prearranged plan. For the first pairs of cards, everyone gave the correct answer.
2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2.
For the second set of cards, the group was again unanimous.
1, 1,
1,
1, 1, 1.
But on the third trial, the other subjects chose the wrong line, and they all chose the same wrong line.
2, 2,
2,
2, 2, 2.
Each study had 18 trials, for 12 of which the Confederates gave unanimous incorrect answers. They gave correct answers occasionally so that the participants did not suspect collusion. In this situation, 2 alternatives were open to the subject. 1, he could act independently, repudiating the majority.
1, 1,
1,
1, 2, 1.
Or he could go along with the majority, repudiating the evidence of his senses.
1, 1,
1,
1, 1, 1.
Of course, individuals differed markedly in their responses. Some subjects were completely independent and never agreed with the erroneous judgments of the majority, whereas other subjects conformed almost all the time. Each participant was interviewed at the end of the experiment. Explanations given for participants' nonconformity included confidence in one's own judgment or the obligation to stick to their answers. Conformists gave explanations such as, "I'm wrong, they're right," "not to spoil your results," or the idea that something was wrong with them for seeing the answer differently, so they wished to hide this. Sometimes we go along with the group because what they say convinces us they are right. This is called informational conformity. But sometimes we conform because we are apprehensive that the group will disapprove if we are deviant. This is called normative conformity. This distinction is attributed to Deutsch and Gerard, 1955. Results. Under ordinary circumstances, control group, when all the participants were naive subjects, individuals made mistakes less than 1% of the time. Under group pressure, the participants accepted the wrong judgments in 37% of the cases. 74% of the participants gave an incorrect answer to at least one question. Only 26% of participants remained completely independent. Whether the participants yielded or remained independent for the most part, they were deeply disturbed by this discrepancy between what they saw and what they believed others saw. Factors affecting the degree of conformity. After completing the initial study, Asch conducted additional research to see which aspect of group influence was most important: the size of the majority or its unanimity. In one series, the size of the opposition was varied from 1 to 15 persons. When a participant was confronted with only a single individual who gave a wrong answer, he answered independently and gave the correct answer in almost all of the trials. However, when the subject faced two people giving wrong answers, he answered incorrectly 13.6% of the time. With 3 Confederates answering incorrectly, participants gave erroneous answers 31.8% of the time. However, further increases in the size of the majority did not result in a substantial increase in conformity, as we can see in the chart. Asch found that the size of the opposition only had an effect up to a certain point. To explore the effect of unanimity, a supporting partner who gave right answers was introduced in the group. He was seated in the 3rd position.
Two. 1. 2.
This situation decreased the subject's incorrect answers to 1/4 of the number observed when the majority was unanimous. When a partner also gave the right answer, conformity dropped to only 5% in comparison to 37% without a partner. Although subjects reported warmth and good feeling toward the partner, they typically denied that he played a role in their own independence. The partnership variation shows that much of the power of the group came not merely from its numbers, but from the unanimity of its opposition. Once that unanimity is broken, the group's power is greatly reduced. Was the partner's effect a consequence of his dissent, or was it related to his accuracy? To answer this question, a Confederate was instructed to disagree with both the group and the subject.
Three. Three.
1,
3, 2, 3.
Results showed that, even in this situation, the rate of conformity was reduced. Does an individual's resistance to group pressure depend on the degree to which the majority is wrong? Ash manipulated the discrepancy between the standard line and comparison lines. He tried to reach a point where the error was so blatantly obvious that the subject would certainly choose the correct answer despite the majority. Cultural differences and conformity. Has the level of conformity changed over time since the 1950s? An analysis of US studies found that levels of conformity in general have steadily declined since Ash's study. Bond and Smith, 1996. Does the level of conformity vary from one culture to another? Using a modified form of the Ash-type group pressure technique, Stanley Milgram, 1961, compared the conformity rates of Norwegian and French participants. He noted that the Norwegians have a strong feeling of group identity and social responsibility, and he hypothesized that social cohesiveness of this sort could go hand in hand with a high degree of conformity. In contrast, he noticed that French society has a tradition of dissent and a greater diversity of opinions, which could help participants resist group pressure. In line with these predictions, Milgram observed conformity in 62% of Norwegian subjects and 50% of French subjects. More generally, literature shows that individuals from collectivist cultures, rather than individualist cultures, are more likely to yield to the majority given the higher value placed on harmony in person-to-group relations. I thank you for your time.